So in last video, we talked about the 8 facts regarding the effective financial structure. So in this video and the video follow this one, we're actually going to look at why we're going to see those 8 facts. So obviously, if you reread those 8 facts, you notice that there is one term mentioned many times. So that is called financial intermediaries, indirect finance. So why the financial intermediary is so important for a healthy and effective financial structure. So the reason we need a financial intermediary because two things, transaction and information costs. Transaction and information costs. So what is a transaction cost? What is transaction cost? So the transaction cost is not when we talk about we commute from your house to anywhere, you're gonna drive the vehicle, you're gonna pay the cost for the fuel for the gas. So that is not what we talk about transaction cost in the financial market because nobody driving the car on the financial market when they are trading, right? They're all electronic trading. So what do we mean by transaction cost? So the transaction cost here had a broader definition. So the transaction cost is involving the time and the money. Time and the money related to the transaction when you're trading and in time and inconvenience. And so the inconvenience causing you spend more time. So basically the transaction cost is measure how easily you can make the transaction. And so the reason we see the 8 facts, when we look at 8 facts, financial intermediaries mentioned many times, is because there is a very important role for the financial intermediary. That is, a financial intermediary can reduce the transaction cost. Financial intermediary can reduce transaction cost. Why? Just think about, let's say you have extra $1,000. So somebody in California, which are on the West Coast, at this point need $1,000 to start a new business. But for you, you just have this extra $1,000 laying there, and you just knock every your neighbor's door. Say, do you want $1,000? I can lend it to you. Do you want? Nobody just. I don't want your money. But like I said, on the West Coast, somebody there they wanted this $1,000. Just need this $1,000. They can start a great business that's gonna make tons of the profit. So how are you gonna know that person? It's almost impossible. So this is called a transaction cost. However, if we do have a bank, so what happens is you just put your this extra $1,000 in the bank, become your saving, so it become your deposit. And this bank can having this $1,000. So that person on the West Coast want money, they just go to the bank, say, I want to borrow 1,000 because the bank has different branches. So they can go to the branch open in California and they say, I'm going to borrow $1,000. So the transaction happened without him to knowing you, without him to come travel to Erie to knock your door. So nothing involved. So this is saving the transaction cost. And the second, and sometimes when you want to buy the corporate some big stock, let's see some investment to show very expensive. You want to tracking on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, but for you cannot buy every stocks because for you don't have that money to afford to buying every stock to follow the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So what are you gonna do? So what happens is you're gonna go through financial intermediaries and you're gonna buy the index fund. So you don't need to buy every stock which is in the index because you won't be able to afford it. Instead, you're gonna buy the index fund. So again, you go through the financial intermediaries. So you can see how important the financial intermediary plays. So they are not only build a bridge between lender and borrower, made the lending and borrowing easier, and also it allowed investor, even they don't have a big amount of money, to be able to invest their small amount of money. So that is how the financial intermediary can reduce the transaction cost. So to be more professional, explain what I just said. So for the financial intermediary, they can meet economies of the scale. So we learned that from Econ 220, Principal Microeconomic class. So that allowed them to reduce the transaction cost per dollar of the investment. And also, they can lower the cost of the resource because they will have a professional, like everybody many students want to be a personal financial planner, and so they have the special knowledge. So instead you hire a financial planner, you go to the big bank, they usually have the financial planner to help you to plan your actual monies. So they will be able to hire one expert to serve all the customers. So that's definitely lower the cost of the resource, and also they can collect all the resources. They say called expert, and also they can use all the resources to build a very strong, convenient online banking system. Like I said, if you only by yourself, you won't be able to build online banking system. You do need to rely on the financial intermediary. So because the economies of scale, and they are have an opportunity to hire expert that allow them to reduce in the transaction cost. So obviously, if we have an effective financial market, we should and we must have a good financial intermediary system, because it help us to reduce the transaction cost. So we did see the good side about having the financial intermediaries. So what is the negative side, or what is a hindrance the financial intermediary? So that's the second cost we have to talk about. That is called information cost. So the information cost will relate to the information cost, also called asymmetric information. So which means on the financial market, the market participant, one party has more information than another, and then the party have more information, they hide it, and then take action that are going to hurt another party. So that's very unhealthy. And so generally speaking, for the asymmetric information, we have the two different kinds. We actually explained it in the previous chapter. One is called adverse selection. Another is called a moral hazard. So the adverse selection occurred before a transaction had occurred, and the moral hazard arise after the transaction has developed. So in next video, we're going to focus on what is called adverse selection, and I will go further to explain how do we understand adverse selection, why it has to be happen before a transaction occur. And the video after the next one will be talking about moral hazard, and so why it has to be why it only can happen after the transaction happened. So also we're also going to discuss how can we avoid it on the financial market.